We will start today's session.
Mm.
Namaste, everyone. Uh, Today is our 41st session, and we will have a continuation of the last session with Aristo, who is actually doing chapter number 16, uh, Rajaniti, or the governance policy. We've done half of it, and today he will be doing the other half of this. So, welcome, Aristo, and please lead us through this session. I'll share the screen. Yeah.
We in the last session, we finished till natural domain out of the three domains, intellectual, social, and natural. So we finished these three tables, and now I think I didn't read the last line, which says accepting the lawful and unlawful according to above as the fundamental basis. The policy for the security of all resources, that is body, mind, and wealth, is determined naturally. So I think we've already talked about this in quite detail. So let's move forward in this government policy, policy, where we'll be going through different other six dimensions of security, which are national, economic, production, exchange, education, and ethical security. So we'll be going through these. Um, in the first page of this, since they'll be talked about in quite detail, so I'll quickly go through this page and jump on detail on all of these. So starting here, mm, so the governance policy at the national level needs to be determined across the following six perspectives, and its goal needs to be clearly defined. Based on these, the normalization of systems and self-discipline, this Swanushasan, proves to be significant from the perspective of coexistence, awakening, and prosperity of humans. So I would again like to mention that if anywhere I go wrong, please feel free to pitch in or correct me, and wherever you feel you have something to say, feel free to point out and add your point as well. So that will be good for everyone. So that's open for everyone. Yeah,
Sure, Aristo. This is he's extending the invitation for all the participants here. So it needs to be, if we can make it more participative for all of us.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So first being national security. Since these are discussed in detail from the next page, so I'll just quickly go through them. Uh, so national security through the principle of coexistence, economic security through the principle of producing more than the needs of family by way of circularity, is avartanshilta. Production security through the principle of maintaining nature's balance. Exchange security through the principle of deployment of labor and exchange. Education sanskar security through knowledge of coexistence based human centric contemplation. Ethical security through right use and security of resources in the form of body, mind, and wealth, that is tan, man, and dhan. So, I'll, but before moving on to the next section, I think it is very important to look at our beliefs of security, what is our personal definition of security. So, looking at so next is national security. So, looking at our definition of security, I feel it is in society. It is, I feel, more tied with the security of borders or security of being able to practice our religions, or security in the sense of minimum wage. So these and more. So this is the general area of security that is currently perceived. While what is being talked about here is what is the basic right which we should always have as humans. So the opportunity to understand, the opportunity to awaken ourselves, the opportunity to realize how things are, identify ourselves as who we are, identifying our roles, our responsibilities, and being able to live with our families, the society, in a country, in a very prosperous way, with resolution, with happiness. So that is the underlying security that we are looking for, while the focus is more towards, as of now, more towards protecting from what is wrong instead of protecting what is right. So that I feel is the core essence of security that is being talked here, instead of what is being followed around us. So coming to national security, uh, the national security policy aims to secure the belief and dedication of people residing in the nation towards national identity. It is Swatv, independence, Swatantrata, and sovereignty. The policy aligns with the vision of the indivisible society and universal system, so that every individual, family, and community within the nation feel secure, and every individual can fearlessly engage in systems, occupations, and behavior, thereby having the opportunity to realize a life with resolution and prosperity. So everyone can live with solution, samadhan, and samriddhi. Um, Clearly, such a policy can only be formulated with a humane perspective as the goal. Furthermore, a national security policy of this nature eliminates the possibility of exploiting other nations, thereby establishing a foundation of trust for mutual coexistence. This paraspar sahastit. So, like currently, every country has a different national security. But when we see Earth as a whole, so all the humans are one, the Earth is one, goals are one. So there is sense of having borders, but it is more, the sense of border comes more in terms of the responsibilities that we have to play in a certain region or at a certain place. But when we see on a tattvic level or an atomic level, uh, so we humans are one, but our places of engagement are different. So the sense of borders come in when we talk about our responsibilities, but so the sense of protecting borders is something that is not being talked about here. Protecting our homes or borders, it is being, um, so the core here is more towards realizing realization or awakening, instead of and establishing trust among each other, instead of protecting ourselves from the wrong. So, Not that we don't have to do it until there is resolution, a higher degree of resolution that also needs to be done. But yeah, the point here is that moving to economic security, the economic security policy for a nation needs to be determined based on the following points. Number one, developing the policy for the system to inculcate tendency in all individuals towards production activities based on their potential, receptivity, and ability. It is Kshamta, Patrata, and Yogyata. This would manifest in families producing more than their needs and resolution prosperity becoming evident in every family. So, first. Second, embracing the policy that encourages prosperity of families and making the necessary means accessible. Hmm. Third, conferring respect and honor based on potential, ability, and receptivity. Uh, I think well, let's finish the entire thing till eighth point, and then I'll go point by point. So, fourth, developing a policy that encourages the maximum effort and investing of resources for production activities. Fifth, developing a policy for the indivisible society based on humaneness, which is completely resolved and free from biased ideas and notions of various castes, classes, beliefs, and sects. Sixth, developing a policy that establishes rightfully owned wealth, that is Swadhan, marital faithfulness, and kindness in work and behavior, that is Swanari Swapurush Dayapurn Karya Vyavhar, eliminating the disparity between the rich and poor based on resolution and prosperity in every family. 8. Developing a process within the system that ensures access to justice for men and women of all age groups. The entire economic policy needs to have the complete possibility of realizing prosperity in fulfilling relationships and associations, starting from individuals till the nation, while keeping humane perspective, intrinsic nature, that is Manvyata Poon Drishti, Swabhav, and propensity, Vishay, as the goal. This would manifest only as dedication towards rightfully owned wealth through higher production and lower consumption, marital faithfulness, and kindness in work and behavior, while eliminating acts of wrongfully owned wealth, adultery, and inflicting pain on others. Because eventually, rightfully owned wealth, marital faithfulness, and kindness in work and behavior is needed, is indeed the practical form of harmony in relationships and associations and righteousness. Okay. So I find it like economic security, the points being talked about here, quite interesting and very different from how I personally have seen studied economics during my time in school and my time in um, high school. So I find it very different in the sense that usually when we discuss about economic policy, the discussion points are uh, not these. So to say that they are more here they are being directed towards the righteous character. What are the social laws? um, what is the right utilization of body, mind, and wealth. And it is not just talking about utilization of what we see physical resources, things around us. It is also talking about right character, and the faithfulness in relationships. So it talks about social laws. So here economic security has a much broader perspective, I feel. So like in point number 4, developing a policy that encourages maximum efforts and investment of resources for production activities. So currently, we have a tendency of consuming whatever we have in excess. While India has some tendency of saving things, but it is still here. It is talking about investing in uh, things which increase production. So instead of increasing consumption, it talks more about increase investing in things which are productive. So uh, all in all, I feel here we can see that we so the social laws in the form of rightfully owned wealth, marital faithfulness, kindness in work and behavior play a very big role in economic security, and along with values, characters, that is mulya, charitra, and naitikta. So these play a very big role in feeling secure in a country in the economic sense, because when we are assured about someone's value systems, we are assured about their character, we feel secure when in their presence. So it talks in even in economics, they are talking more about um, drishti of a person, perspective, their morals in general. So I feel this is a different lens to economics. So
Yeah, I think it is a very good point that you made that I mean, the economic security of a nation really depends on the morals of its people. So the economics is not just about how much the country is able to produce, how much GDP that it has, but it is about how happy the people are, how much harmony they have in their families, how stable are their relationships. That would determine their economic well-being as well. So economic is not so economic security. If there are relationships are stable, if the people are responsible towards each other, and uh, the family is as a unit is stable, then the economic security of the nation also gets assured. That's an important insight that we get from here. Second thing as you read over here is uh, family has been identified as a unit of production, right? So which means that every family gets engages in some sort of production or the other. So here, Babaji, all you would actually make the point that every one of us should take part in some production activity, right? Because it's a family's stability mm, comes from two angles. One is having nyaya or justice in their relationship, and second is in terms of having the material well-being also. So for material well-being, there needs to be some production or seva engagement needs to be there so that there is uh, availability of resources for a decent livelihood, right? And also the justice. So these things actually provide the foundation for a nation's security. So a policy is something that you make as something so that you enable which enables that thing to provide the resources and to create the conditions to give the incentive for moving in the right direction. It, so that is the point here in the economic security. Yeah.
Nice.
Anyone
So
wants to add anything else over here on the economic security?
Yeah, I'm Sheila here.
Namaste, Didi.
Wisdom. Namaste. So it just came to my, even I was thinking of, like how does marital faithfulness connect to economic security? And then I
Mhm.
was thinking that all the cases that are in the courts at the moment are, most of them are over property rights. And if marital faithfulness and unfaithfulness comes into the picture, then it becomes even more complicated. But otherwise, yeah, this is what people are fighting over, is mostly property, money, and distrust amongst each other. So the values are not there. The character is may or may not be there, and the policy, the our own policy of living, is on shaky ground, and therefore therefore we have this. It's like a disease in in our law and order system. The number of cases that are being filed over just property.
Yeah.
So, connects. That's it.
Yeah, very nice. Good point.
hmm.
Yes, Aristo, please.
Yeah, like hearing it from Sheila Dedi, I started thinking about something that I was thinking some time back and started to correlate it with the economic policy. So some time back, I was thinking about how there is an expectation of healthcare policies in general in a country. Like we see some policies in US, let's say Obamacare, and then we compare it with health policy in India through Modi Care, and we expect some returns out of it, while we tend to not see how our own eating habits, we don't see our own Sanyam. Like we can go around, eat as many chola bhaturas, as many samosas, and we there is, or at the same time there is expectation of let's say Modi care of some or some health care that we get for free, while not seeing we day to day we eat unhealthy things and end up getting in bad physical health and expect something out of it. I feel a similar thing happens here in economic policies as well, where we expect something from government while not having looking inside us, in the sense where Sheila Didi talked about marital faithfulness. We talk about justice that we can get from the government, but don't see the our own thought when we are not doing justice to our own thoughts, or when we are not doing justice to the people around us and expect justice from some places where while it is so easy to identify justice within first and then see it outside. So yes.
Very well said.
This is remind Aristo, what you're saying is reminding me of like the school curriculum where it start teaching children about policy and how the it is like part of policy starts at the level of the family and
Hmm,
the individuals, and the mother's policy is how you introduce it to the children. So healthcare policy in the family starts with
hmm,
how you decide to go
hmm,
about your meals and lifestyle.
hmm,
Similarly, economic policy
hmm.
sounds like
Yeah,
uh, that's
Connect.
yeah.
yeah, correct. Yeah. So let's move forward, hoping to finish this chapter today. I think this won't take as much time as it took yesterday. This this shouldn't be as long. So, going to production security now. Production is establishing usefulness and aesthetic value, is kala, on natural abundance through the deployment of human labor. The endeavor for the right use of every individual's labor and skills towards production is referred to as production security policy. The right use of available labor, that is deployment of skills, proficiency, and mastery, is nipunta, kushalta, and panditya, constitutes economic security. There are mainly two types of production necessary for humans: agriculture and industry. All other occupations prove to be dependent or complementary to these. The system needs to determine the policy for production security based on the following aspects. First, prioritizing the development of skills and proficiency, allocating resources to individuals with skills and proficiency, so with nipunta and kushalta. Third, establishing policies to support research and development for production of useful objects for humans, such as food, shelter, clothing, telecommunication, and transportation. That is Ahar, Avas, Alankar, Durshravan, Durgaman. And development of policy for common accessibility of skills and proficiency, along with understanding, which promotes increased production and qualitative development in the people. It is increased utpadan and vyaktitva sampannata in people. Fifth, developing policy that prevents the exploitation of fruits of labor. So, while determining a policy for occupational security, the development of a just production policy would ensure adequate opportunities for right use, distribution, experimentation, and occupation to fulfill relationships and association. That is उपयोग, सदुपयोग, वितरण, प्रयोग, व्यवसाय, fulfill relationships and association. So this basically production security here talks about points on use and right use of all the labor and skills, and these being deployed uh, at a right place, uh, where there is usefulness of and aesthetic value, so that we are able to satisfy our needs while maintaining the cyclicity of nature. So being able to maintain cyclicity of nature uh, is something which is being added here. Um, also, so I think in so it also at the same time talks about the just production policy in the last line, uh, after the fifth point, talks about development of a just production policy. I think where the focus here is on so putting everything under the umbrella of justice. So policies which are established with the clarity of justice, relationships, mulya, when these are done with this understanding, then we get a better clarity on the role of physical things, then we get more clarity of our needs. So, I think that is the main focus here. Uh, and while at the same time looking at uh, focusing more on what is needed, such as food, shelter, clothing, telecommunication, and transportation. So focusing more on these, and with the base of just production systems, just policies, which propel us towards awakening. I think that is the focus again here. So, moving to the next point, that is exchange security. Uh, so, exchange refers to the activity of making the produced goods available to consumers based on the evaluation of human labor, is Mulyankan and Shram Mulya. The policy for exchange security needs to be determined based on the following. First, determining policy to accomplish exchange free from profit and loss by encouraging coexistential perspective and exchange methodology. Second, developing an exchange methodology based on evaluation and exchange of human labor, this Mulya and Vinimay. Then international exchange has to be free from profit and loss, which can only be successful when it is based on object value and labor value. It is Vastu Mulya and Shram Mulya. So here, I think the exchange security is it is Babaji has written with the everything has been written with the perspective of an awakened society. So here, even economics is being the exchange is being talked in the perspective of a cyclical economics, and we get more deeper insights into exchange security when we study Avartanshil Arthashastra and cyclical economics. But currently, when we see uh, the direction of exchange and production, so the current direction of exchange and production is more towards profit, because obviously there is lack of clarity and understanding within us as a society, and there is lack of clarity on our own needs. So there is uh, a direction towards maximization of profit out of insecurity of what I will get in the end. So therefore, point in exchange is of, so here the major point that I see is of change in mindset, which is free from profit and loss. I think that is in current situation when we see people around us, it seems rather uh, difficult as a society as a whole. But here the main point that is being raised in exchange and security is um, so currently the value of an object, whatever we purchase, in most cases is not connected with the labor or the cost that has gone into exchange. It is rather more connected towards its perceived value than its actual value. It is more connected to the um, assumed demand, so to say, instead of the actual value of that product or actual cost that has gone into exchange or vitran of vinimay of that product. So it is disconnected from the labor and exchange cost as of now. So here it talks about um, exchange security, which is connected with the actual value of a certain object. Yeah. So moving to uh, education sanskar security. I think education sansar security is quite interesting here, and let me go through at once, some of it, and then let's talk about it. So, education sanskar security. Learning is to methodically uh, impart the study of absolute truth, objective truth, and relative truth through existence-based human-centric contemplation, also known as Madhyas Darshan coexistential thought. The responsibility for making the study successful rests on teachers, guardians, teaching, and educational content and procedure, because all these four are mutually complementary. The development of a successful education sanskar methodology is possible only when the educational procedure, teachers, parents, and study are aligned. This paves the way for gratitude and coexistence. A clear understanding of moral policy and governance policy in the form of the indivisible society and universal system is necessary to determine the educational procedure and policy. It is imperative for humaneness and sociality in humans to be the basis and objective of educational policy. Humaneness itself is sociality, is manviyata itself is samajikta, which is a universal fact. Therefore, educational procedures based on it will develop human citizens with firm dedication to coexistence and nurturing. The goal of the educational policy is to develop citizens with understanding, honesty, responsibility, and participation. It is samajhdari, imandari, zimmedari, and bhagidari, enriched with knowledge, wisdom, and science of humane perspective, tendencies, and inherent nature, who will attain higher humaneness eventually. Hmm. So, I'll go through what I perceive from the education sanskar security so far. Uh, so here it talks about in the first line it talks about absolute truth, objective truth, and relative truth. So um, so imparting this study of absolute truth, objective truth, and relative truth, where absolute truth being understanding of sentient and insentient units in nature saturated in the omnipresence, and objective truth being the understanding of that all units are have certain form, certain attributes, an intrinsic nature, and have a dharma. So understanding of this objective truth, and relative truth being every unit has there is desh disha kal, so any some place, direction, and time. So a basic understanding of this being imparted in uh, everyone, and so in between these this in this content, in the third para, I find this to be very interesting, where it talks about ek sutrata or alignment in the four areas, that is the procedure, teachers, parents, and the study. So I feel that is one of the biggest gaps that we can see in education right now. So what I find most interesting here is that overall in this version we see that the perspective that is shared by Babaji Uh, so we evaluate what is right or what needs to be done. So evaluate critically evaluating something in the light of what is right. So whatever Babaji has seen, so we evaluate our current systems, our current state in the light of what Babaji has said or what is universally right. So seeing things in the light of that, when we critically evaluate without that, that critically evaluating without the right perspective or without the right light is in many cases not very successful. So critical evaluation in the light of right is get successful. So here also, I think when we follow the right way of samiksha and right way of mulyankan, so samiksha gets successful only when there is mulyankan of things. Similarly, here I think it's after seeing what Babaji has to say in the light of what is right, we are able to see the gaps in our systems or our education policies. So seeing that what the expectation of, let's say, parents and expectation of teachers might align on on having a good behavior or having a general definition of what is good. So they try to impart good behavior in children, while the content or the procedure focuses more on skills. So, the expectation versus the reality of content or reality of what is being imparted is slightly off from the goal. So, which needs to be changed. And when we see all this when in the light of what is right. Oh,
I think that's a very important point that we can do the evaluation if we have the basis of what is right. Otherwise, there is always everything is relative only, and we
mm,
don't really have any goal to go to. Second thing that I feel is that education is the main task of the education is to build the capability of of the mindset for actually other dimensions of living like production, exchange, etc. For everywhere, you require a mindset. Like for example, or exchange you talked about that the exchange needs to be free from profit or loss. Now, exchange security will be done by that system, but unless people have that mentality of actually operating out of justice, that will not work. So education needs to be actually focusing on building that mindset in the people by providing the logic and satisfying the questions and providing an environment, a safe environment for doing the practice for the real world, so that basically when the children or they go into the real world, they are actually are capable with that perspective which helps them to live in with justice, right? So he is basically talking about building a just society, a society based on justice. So where the economic systems are based on justice, where production is based on justice, exchange is based on justice. Now, all of this can work only when we actually have our outlook is based on justice. Our outlook becomes justice. And that is where the education security really becomes the central figure. Yeah, in this whole thing.
mm. So here Babaji also here talks about the points of success for an educational system, which I feel uh, each of these points is a huge research topic in itself. So here, and the first point being the study. So the success of educational policy is with the following points. First being the study of consciousness along with science. So, so here I think through knowledge or through gyan, we get clarity of or direction of science. So when we have a clarity of who we are, or we get clarity of who we are in coexistence, we get what is the right direction for us. And when we are able to figure out that, then we get clarity on where to put efforts in science and what should be the direction of efforts that we do in science. So, and when it aligns with the general purpose of Jivan, then Vigyan can also be successful. Science goes in the right direction. But seeing the current state of things, it seems, although slowly, gradually reaching a positive note here, but and when we see science where empirical evidence is something which is very considered to be most trustworthy, and we see the existence of Jivan or proving the existence of Jivan through a Drishti Gochar Vidhi seems to be very impossible. And so proving uh, Jivan or acceptance of Gyan Gochar in general, I'm not getting the right word for Drishti Gochar or Gyan Gochar, maybe with the lens of an English word for these could be with seeing through the lens of wisdom or seeing through the lens of physicality. So, uh, so in the acceptance of seeing through the lens of wisdom or knowledge is something that is missing, and if that gets there, then maybe Jivan can be accepted as is. So I feel the study of consciousness along with science is something which is quite a big topic in itself. Moving to the second point, the study of sanskar along with psychology. So, so studying like right now, it seems very split between whether our state of mind, our behavior is genetic or is it driven uh, uh, by a combination of how society is, how our lives have been so far, and our sanskar of Jivan that has been carried on for so long. So is it a combination of society and sanskar, or is it something with it very genetic? So that is something which needs to be incorporated. So sanskar in itself needs to be incorporated with psychology, and that's when psychology will also get be successful. So we've talked about science, psychology. Next being the study of policy for the right use and security of natural and human-made resources, along with economics. This point again shifts the focus from production maximization and profit of resources to things being cyclical, natural nature being cyclical, human resources being cyclical, put to right utilization and have security. So it focuses, the focus of economics changes from maximization of things to things being put in right utilization for a harmonious system. Third, about sociology. So, the study of humane culture and civilization along with sociology. So, The study of sociology currently has a lot of our culture and civilization has been tied more with religion, race, the lineage or hereditary, the roots of people, and that's how culture and civilization gets talked about more. Here, the focus when they talk about study of humane culture and civilization, then when we talk about humane, then it automatically becomes what is common in humans, what is how does our sanskar get tied with culture, and how does our ahar vihar vyavhar, say food lifestyle, our behavior gets tied with our culture and civilization. So there is slight shift there as well in sociology. Um, Fifth, being the study of policy for the protection and promotion of humaneness along with political science. So again, when humans get included, mm, then when humaneness gets included, the policy, the political science gets a more complete picture. So, sixth, the study of application aspect along with philosophy. Yes, Kriya. I find this to be quite interesting that like as of now I maybe I don't have a lot of background on general philosophy and how the subject is taught around places, but what I feel is from however less knowledge I have, I feel mm, it is all over the place, whereas when we see philosophy being talked about here, I think Babaji gives it a very good framework in the sense. So one way to look at philosophy is on the basis of kriyas, different kriyas. Let's say the physical activities, physiochemical activities, or jivan activities. So jivan kriya, bhautik kriya, and rasainik kriya. So we can look at what different philosophies talk about when it comes to these areas. Other way to look at it is through a human centric way. So when we see ourselves, we live in four dimensions, whereas there is anubhav, vichar, vyavhar, karya. So we can see it in that direction, that what does a philosophy talk about when it comes to realization or anubhav? What does it talk about when it comes to vichar? So in a in a space in a place where someone is awakened, someone is has complete realization. So what happens? How does a person reach at that stage? And once that person is there, what are the kinds of thoughts he or she has? And when it comes to behavior, so what is the vyavhar like when it comes to society, when it comes to family? And then it can also talk about, so in an awakened state, how is the work like? How is karya around the society? So uh, so we can see a philosophy in these dimensions. So it gives a good framework to how philosophies can be studied with respect to their applications, their kriyas.
I think this is a very good point. In fact, it reminds me, I mean, very long back when I was first introduced with the Madhyas Darshan, uh, I used to actually be studying J. Krishnamurti and other philosophies. And there the focus was that on we need to get over with our conditioning. There is a lot of conditioning on our mind, and we need to get over that conditioning. And when the conditioning is removed, then our true self will shine through and everything will be fine after that. So, the person who had introduced me with darshan, my friend Praveen, he asked me, okay, suppose all your conditioning has been removed. Now, what is your program? Okay, what is it that you will do, right? And what is how do you how will you live? Will you live in the family or not? Will you do any occupation or not? Okay. What will be your program? How will the nation work? How will the society function? So I actually drew a blank over there. I somehow felt that philosophy or the spiritual pursuit is all about reaching a state, a blissful state of meditation, and after that, it doesn't matter what you do. So here in Darshan, Madhyas Darshan is it talks about becoming resolved and achieving anubhav, but it is saying that it needs to be having an application. It needs to be having an application, and it says that the beginning, the proof that you have actually understood anything is in your living only. There is no uh, otherwise, whether you have understood anything or not, it's of no consequence. So very interesting point that it is. Also, all if you look at our all the six darshans that are there in our Hindu, not Hindu, uh, Indian knowledge systems. So you see that all of them are actually focusing on Brahm realization, right? They are not focusing on Kriya, right? They are not focusing on the uh, action part of it. They are not interested in. Uh, so there are, if you look at our Vedas, they talk about char purusharth, mm, uh, dharma, arth, kam, and moksha. So all of them are actually all the darshans that are there. They are actually focusing on moksha only. They are not talking about the other three aspects. So somewhere the balance is actually lost over there. So that is what I understood as the meaning of darshan shastra ke saath kriya paksh ka adhyan. That is the study of application aspect along with philosophy.
Can I?
Yeah, sure.
So, what you were saying is really interesting because I was just thinking, I haven't studied Indian philosophy as much, and I was wondering how it translates there because in Western philosophy, it's broken into three parts, and it's basically ontology, epistemology, and then the ethics or morality part of it, which is usually called practical philosophy. But what has been lacking there is so there's been a lot of proposition there, but it's very difficult to live out that sort of morality because it's not in one way, it's not synthesized. You find when you try to live it, it can't be lived in a very synthesized manner. So the evidence of that morality becomes lacking. So how I used to interpret this Kriya Pakshas ki, okay, they talk about morality and ethics in living, but it's more at the level of talking rather than at the level of living because you can't find the evidence there. So I was wondering, because in Indian philosophies, I know that they have talked about Praman quite a bit. So I was wondering how this would work for Indian philosophies, which is probably where Baba was writing this from. And it was interesting to hear that there it is about the living aspect altogether. I mean, not just evidence in living, but even simply living is not really, it seems, um, delved into so much in the Indian philosophy tradition.
See, we are actually talking about living, and for that there are this Manu Smriti, Parashar Smriti are there, right? And they are actually describing about how the society needs to be structured, what are the duties and responsibilities, who needs to do what, and how the punishments are to be given, and so on and so forth. Babaji had questions on that, and also he was basically not seeing the connection between the Gyan aspect of darshans and the living aspect, which was actually gets described in the Smritis, right? So there were actually
Isn't that more like
disconnects. Sorry?
those sound more like edicts, like this is the
Yeah.
system that has been set, rather than a philosophy of morality as such.
Yeah, well, there were edicts and do's and don'ts, but also there would be some reasoning also with that. Reasoning would be based on the darshan. Darshan would
Mm.
and darshan would be based on some rahasya would be at the end of it, right? So there was a
Mm.
whole structure would be built around it. The faith and the culture would be built around it to support that, right? But there would be so it would all be having a very good logical connect everywhere, and this has actually worked because uh, for a long time, because there was something good in it, right, which actually sustained this whole thing for a for a very very long time, right? But there were certain things which basically did not stand the uh, once the basically the science came about, we started putting the test of logic on everything, right? So the whatever we had built around faith, that started crumbling after that, right? So 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 I think the structure in the Western philosophy and Eastern philosophy are a little different, but the pieces are there in both of them for that.
So in that sense, even in this, in the Eastern philosophy, there is talk of how to live based on the philosophy, but no real evidence of having lived that way consistently in a fully moral or satisfying manner. Because
Yeah,
I'm remembering.
yeah, so it would have its own things, like it would say, okay, how a Brahmin should live, how a Kshatriya should live, how a Shudra should live, and what happens if he does not live according to that, right? So there is a full watertight methods about do's and don'ts from दैनिक क्रियाक्रम से लेके कौन से समय में क्या करना है, क्या खाना है, all those things have been written down. So in terms of detailing, it has been done to the mm, nth detail, right? But you see that there is at the root of it is rahasya, and that is where the question really is, right?
Right. That so where this is coming from is because he says ki we need to associate the philosophical study with the kriya paksh or the practical or the living application aspect. But if we look at it, philosophies, it seems, in the East and the West have tried to do that already in their own ways. So in Western philosophy, also there's a lived aspect to the philosophy in this form of ethics and morality. And in the Eastern philosophy also, there has been the aspect of practical living and how that philosophy translates into the living. So that's why I'm trying to just see where this becomes distinct from those living aspects that were associated with philosophy.
Think something to think about. I guess their validation of coexistence in the realization and in the evidence, that is what is the check over here. Yeah.
Mhm. Like in terms of ultimate goal, probably. For instance, say, and that's what I'm thinking of just now, that if your philosophy says the ultimate goal is Vasudev Kutumbakam or universal family, and here are the edicts of how this philosophy translates into living, then that living should evidence as that final goal, probably. Or, I mean, that's what I'm imagining, that the goal should be met by the lived aspect, and that would be the evidence.
Yeah,
rather than just.
I need to think about that. Yes. One is the evidence aspect, one other is the realization aspect. Realization gets evident. So what gets realized needs to be evident. Then only there is a connect between what has been understood and what gets evident. So unless if this connect is there, then we can say that whatever has been understood gets implemented as well. Yeah. So I guess I do not know how what is the whether all the philosophies are giving a final vision of the human society or not, or there for them the goal is actually limited to individuals' liberation alone. Yeah. So that really depends. I mean I think something to be thought about, uh, explored.
Hmm. Second.
Mhm.
I from all this conversation, I was something came to my mind. दर्शन के साथ क्रिया पक्ष वाला पार्ट. तो क्रिया पक्ष the what are we calling क्रिया पक्ष here?
Application.
हाँ, the so application sounds like it's going to be after you have the darshan, right? Whereas if you say kriya paksh, it could also be while in the process of getting to that darshan also you need to have a kriya paksh, which is
Mhm.
going to help you to achieve that darshan, to get to that darshan. So the kriya paksh will be at both times. What we call I'm associating it with abhyas or practice. So the kriya paksh is needed to get to that darshan, and it's needed after the you've got the darshan to manifest it or evidence it.
Makes sense.
Could be seen in both ways.
Yeah.
Hmm.
We- Aristo, you want to
Yeah,
take further?
yeah. So think had a very good discussion on philosophy, and it's connect with Kriya Paksh. So something to think about, as Rakesh Bhaiya said, and also I feel the evidence for at least the latter part of the philosophy, how it transitions into families and societies and evidence of living. I feel it is when it comes to other darshans, I feel there has been a lot of time gap between, uh, as in the generations that have passed on since the time of realization, since the time of darshan has been quite long. But here we see the time hasn't been as long. So that is something that has to be thought and also uh, will take time to materialize. Yes, moving to the next point, that is seventh, it talks about history and geography. So the study of humans and humaneness along with history and geography. So in history, I feel as of now, when we compare history that is taught right now and what darshan suggests, so seeing history from also from the lens of uh, development of consciousness, the journey of development of consciousness through time, instead of just mapping the incidents that have happened through a range of time. So seeing the consciousness development either in the sense of what went wrong or what humans as a collective did wrong, went in the wrong direction, and what we could do right. I feel when we put history in this way, it will also end up encouraging humanness. It will also help in encouraging morals and values in the people studying history. When we see current history, I'm not sure how it encourages right direction going forward or learning from bad things. But when we put consciousness development at the core of history, then I think it will the focus can shift to encouraging humaneness uh, in the students who go through history on a deeper level. So that, and about geography, uh, so seeing four orders and their internal variety, like plant order, material order, seeing their variety being placed at different locations, and their how their the process of their coming to existence attached with their purpose of existence is something that can be looked at when we put it through uh, the lens of humaneness, when we put it through the perspective of darshan. Moving to the eighth point, that is the study of existentiality along with literature. So I feel when it comes to literature, it is uh, a little, it gets a little touchy, because it is something that everyone has studied or have had a part with. But I think it also seems like when we talk about darshan literature in the here in darshan, uh, the intention is not to remove uh, imagination, the creativity out of literature, make it, let's say dry, barren, और ऐसा नीरस, लिटरेचर को नीरस कर देना ऐसा इंटेंशन नहीं है. But the intention here is to also not just talk about the sources of sensory happiness through literature. Let's say when we talk about things like there is romance, or there is a lot of in literature there is a lot of imaginary things happening. So attaching creativity and imagination with morals and values, which also guide humaneness, or have some humane aspect as well. So having literature attached to existentiality, so that is I think one perspective of looking at literature through darshan's lens. Uh, Moving to the last para of this chapter, and that is on ethical security. So, this is essentially based on the awakening of Jivan, the recognition of indivisible society and universal system can only be achieved through awakening, which leads to the evidence of ethics. This itself is the essence of right use and security. And in the end, may there be universal well-being. So that is ethical security. I think all the securities get summarized in ethical security. So in to put the entire chapter in, I'll take just 1 minute, 1 or 2 minutes to put the entire chapter in and summarize it in a very short span. So in this chapter of nurturing and exploitation, so in the starting, we saw that every unit is independent and systematic in itself, plays its role in the wider system, and in plant order, in material order, and is in itself directed towards development, directed towards vikas. And so neither is any sentient unit nor us insentient units in existence alone. So everyone is together, and every unit in itself has an effect on the other unit. So any unit which helps us towards awakening is nurturing, and any unit which is a hurdle in awakening is exploitation. So that is where nurturing and exploitation comes into place. So how does human in a family, in society, in country, or across countries organize themselves, systemize themselves, so that everything takes humans as a whole towards awakening and decrease the chances of exploitation and increase the direction towards awakening. So it is in this chapter studied in two parts, through moral policy and through governance policy, that is Dharniti and Rajyaniti, where in moral policy talks about study of existence, its purpose. We see purpose, the purpose, then we are able to, when we see the purpose of existence, we are able to see our own purpose. Then we see the right utilization of things, we see right perspective, we are able to put do right utilization of our surroundings. And in governance policy, with the right perspective, we are able to do we are able to ensure through the right utilization, through legislation systems, through legislation and through our systems, we are able to ensure that right utilization and right perspective, so that every unit in nature goes towards awakening of humans and goes towards nurturing instead of exploitation. I think that as a whole finishes this chapter.
Very well done, Maristo. I mean, I think it was, you shared a lot of good insights, and uh, some good discussions we had, something to think about also after that. Uh, so, anyone wants to say anything mm, or add to this? Shilpa Didi, you
Yeah,
want to say
yeah.
something?
So I'll just say, so Aristo Bhaiya, it was really well done, and I especially like the way you summarize the chapter, because I find that the most difficult, because I feel every line of Babaji is like has so much weightage and meaning, so it's very difficult to summarize things. So that was very well done, and you had some really good insights. Like I really enjoyed that part you said about health. So even I struggle with that. That even I, like, I'm not able to control. Sometimes I feel like I know it's enough, but there's this temptation. So something as basic as food, like we really need to contemplate. And I think your insights were really good, like what you put in, and the perceived value, actual value, a lot of things to think about. And one thing, yeah, like we had this discussion on literature and existentiality, which you put very well, that it's not, meant to be dry. But I just wanted to understand more, like, that would be non-fiction. That means, like, how would it be literature? Because right now, literature is mainly fiction, right? So
Yeah,
how would it be?
I I think I haven't given it a lot of thought, how literature should be. But I believe maybe someone else has worked on literature and maybe is at a stage where they're convincing their children on what to read and what not to read, would have a better idea. Maybe someone else here can put how literature should be in an awakened society.
Sheila Didi, you want to say something? I can see
Yeah, yeah.
the
So
word.
because I remember in the Ahmedabad Sammelan, they wanted those studies to be done na, on the 9 points of Shiksha. So I had taken this topic, साहित्य के साथ तात्विकता. So anyway, I mean, they took some time to think about it and talk to people about it. And one thing that we did come up with was the difference between fiction and fantasy. Okay, so fantasy is something that just is out of the scope of universal rules and laws. And fiction is Like it's within the laws of the universe, and but a child can go to school and have some adventure over there, but it may not be that it actually happened, right? So that would be in the realm of fiction, but it is tatvik, right? It is sahitya and it is tatvik because it can happen. So that is one aspect of it. Then there's this very, very widespread usage. If you see in children's literature, the usage of animals as a source of values, mulya, charitra, and naitikta. Everything is in animals because they feel that the child connects to the animal more than they connect to the human being. And that is actually a flaw in our psychology, manovigyan. This is my opinion that it's a flaw in our how we perceive children. So if we believe that children will connect to the sambandh around them, the relations around them, then we will ensure that our stories and our sahitya also include happy relationships who are saying the same things like
Personified.
the personified animals and trees and sun and all are doing, right? So that's one thing there. Another thing we observed was we studied the NCRT class 6 and 7 English textbooks. What are they addressing? Are they addressing tatvikta? Are they addressing or fantasy? So out of maybe 15 or 20 chapters in each book, so like maybe total 30 chapters in all, there were barely two or three which had a connection with the actual people around and things that have really happened, with actual things that happen. But most of them were with fantasy. Some of them tried to address mulya, values like honor and gratitude and hard work, right? But in comparison to JV and Madhyas Darshan, it wasn't ad- fully addressing. The child would not be able to get something in their hand that, okay, this is how I have to behave, right? This is my opinion about that. So they are the prevalent literature is trying to address it, but because they don't have a full framework of universal laws, so sometimes it's right, but sometimes it's incomplete, let's say. Not wrong, but it's incomplete. And then this
Mhm.
whole personification and of animals and all is there definitely. Anything else?
Yeah, what I am remembering is, basically what you're saying, even when it's not fantasy,
Hmm.
because we don't have an understanding of the three types of laws of intellectual laws and social laws and environmental laws. Therefore, even when we try to write realistic stories and events and dynamics, they end up becoming fictitious and they end up becoming fantastical because we'll imagine that an individual going out away from their family and society on a lone adventure will find some satisfaction in life, which could happen in a non-fantasy situation or in a fantasy situation. But since it is not connected to the laws of humanity and nature, we don't realize that actually there can be no satisfaction in
You
such
go
a
away.
when separate yourself from society and family and relationships and complementarity. So something like that even our we might think that a parent scolding a child will help the child learn a lesson in life, and so we might write a story about it, but actually that doesn't work. So that's not realistic. It is a fantasy in a more in a less fantastical garb than we are used to, but it
It's
is still
incomplete,
fantasy.
I would say. It's
Yeah.
incomplete. So, like, there was one example. You want to write a story about a good habit, like maybe helping your parents in the house. You want to write a story about this. So they'll have a story in which there are two brothers. One helps and one is totally bad. One is very good and one is totally bad. And then how they fight, or they do something and then the bad one is punished for being so bad and terrible and horrible, and the good one gets all the property or something like that. So
So
it's
that's like biblical.
yeah, I would say it's not coexistential, it's not harmonious. आप कहना अच्छा चाहते हो, you want to say give the right message, but you're unable to because you're stuck in this what is the dvandatmak in English?
Dialectic.
Dialectical framework.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you, Didi. That was really interesting. Very nice. Lots to contemplate on. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Vijay bhai, you want to say something? Nice to see you here.
No, but yeah, thank you. Very nice.
Okay,
Sometimes I join, not every time I can join. By.
okay, good. So we will now stop here, and we completed chapter number 16 here. We'll start with chapter 17. This will be Gauri Srihari Didi from Pune. She will be starting chapter number 17. So, hoping to see all of you in the next session. Namaste, everyone. Thank you.
Namaste. Thank you, everyone. Thank you
Thank
so much,
Namaste.
Rakesh. Yeah.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Aristo. Very well
For that
done.
summary.
I thank you.
Thank you. Namaste.